Hi, Mom and
Okay.
Dad. Yeah. We've got Dom Monkhouse here. We are going to talk about a business idea to start a fun little hotel getaway experience in the countryside. Really excited to get into it. This is behind the scenes of the Run With It podcast. You are obviously behind the scenes because you're hearing me curse up a storm just for no reason, which is, how we work out the jitters here on the Run With It podcast. Dom over there is a really intimidating fellow. He's got all this, the English swagger here. Um, but yeah, if you would like to listen to the polished version of this episode where we're not where we're not just cursing nonstop, then you can download it on your podcast player of choice. It'll come out probably in a couple of weeks. Would love to hear some feedback from you. If there are any swear words that we don't know, uh, you know, don't include those in the review because you'll get banned, apparently, according to
Yeah.
Dom. Um, and with that, I think we're ready to get into the episode. What do you think, Ethan?
I think that sounds about right. Yeah, we're ready to rock.
You ready, Dom?
Yeah, ready.
All right, let's do it. Welcome to Run With It, the show that brings you untapped business ideas from successful entrepreneurs. My name is Chris Justin, and I'm here with Ethan Janney. Ethan, how's it going?
It's going good. Got the pressures on to bring up something interesting up here. NFTs. I've been really getting excited about NFTs lately, non-fungible tokens, the kind of art and collectible side of cryptocurrencies. Yeah, and I heard you made some money on some NFT, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a lark. One of my buddies texted me about NBA Top Shot, which is one of the more popular NFTs out there. And yeah, I had 20 minutes to kill, so I signed up and flipped some Top Shot cards for $350. That's
Incredible.
not bad for 20 minutes of logging onto some
Incredible.
platform and trying it out.
But we're not here to talk about the latest in modern technology, actually. We're here to talk to our guest, Dominic Monkhouse. I'll give a quick introduction. Um, he is a business coach, a scale up expert, host of the Melting Pot podcast, author of a book called F Plan B. He's got an idea to start a country experience hotel, basically a place where you can go collect eggs from the chickens before they prepare your gourmet breakfast for you. So, Dominic, tell me, like, what made you think of this idea? Is there a story behind it?
Well, I suppose I worked my way through university working in a pizzeria, so I've got some sort of front of house hospitality skills. And then the businesses that I grew, the tech firms I grew, I used to hire people from hospitality. There's something about the resilience of people who've worked in a restaurant or a bar. I mean, would you do it if you didn't like people? Probably not. And maybe people are rude, or maybe the hours are long and the pay's not very high. And so I used to hire lots of people who came who'd worked in shops or stores or worked in restaurants or bars, and they had tech skills, but they had that sort of underlying hospitality. And I guess as a international traveler, I spend, or normally, 2020 being an exception, I would normally spend quite a lot of time in hotels. Um, and and we've got a sort of little hobby farm where we host our clients for their strategic retreats. And so if I wasn't doing business coaching, then um, maybe we could rent out rooms here. And so then, when you said, what would your business idea be? It's like, okay, well, I need to think about this on a grander scale. It would have to be large enough to pay the bills, as opposed to just being a hobby. So I sort of thought, okay, well, I think I could scale this idea up. This could work.
I got to bring in something really cool, which I just heard about last night from from friends who are deep into real estate. Apparently, and I may be wrong on this, but I heard it just yesterday. U.S. Department of Agriculture will give some pretty incredible grants for first-time farmers. So
Uh-huh.
if you want to pursue this idea, and you've got some big financial assistance from the government, they'll give some loans and grants to really help you get things off the ground, and make it easy for you to get started. So very interesting.
Very good.
Apparently, they have a lot of money. A lot of people getting out of farming, but the Department of Agriculture still has funding to help farmers get things going, and so they need to use it. So I'll give it to you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, in the UK, the average age of a farmer is 60. And so, there is constantly this pressure, even in the UK, to get young people to come into farming.
And there is a big shift, of course, everyone knows this, going on in the food area, where people are looking for more farm to table, looking for more organic foods. And that's, building an experience around that, I think, is just a brilliant idea. This would be, I was telling Dom before we started recording here that I would love for this weekend, I'd love to go out and, shoot some pigeons, or try to shoot some pigeons. There's no chance in hell that I'd actually hit one, but and then try and collect my eggs and have all that. That sounds delightful.
And by the way, Chris, this is going to be perfect for my island in Argentina, right?
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, Dominic, there's an island for sale in Argentina, which already has like wild game roaming around it, and it's quite large, many acres. There's a little forest down there. I'll be buying it hopefully sometime.
Perfect. Sounds perfect.
Next year or so.
So all this sounds like great fun, Dominic, to to start this countryside resort, and you're going to have this wonderful food, and you're going to get some fresh air, all that stuff. It sounds like it's very romantic to do something like that. Give us a smackdown of reality here. What all goes into this? What are some of the things that you need to think about when considering launching this venture?
Well, I do think there's a scale thing, because you're gonna have to have it, like, how big does it need to be, right? So, like, how many rooms? I'm not sure that occupancy is going to be a problem. I think occupancy is going to be pretty good. It's about experiences. Location's going to be important. And the experiences that you can provide are somewhat location dependent, I guess. If it's near the sea, you can do some sea fishing. If it's not near the sea, well, you'll have to do something else. You need enough land, because if you're going to keep some cattle, and that's going to make a material difference to your restaurant bill, then you've got to have enough land. Cows, pigs take up a little bit of space. You probably need an acre per cow. Pigs, you can have a little bit more density. Chickens and geese, you don't need tons of space for them. We've got those roaming around here already. Some dogs. I saw a startup a couple of years ago that was urban startup, where if you lived somewhere that you didn't have a dog, you could rent a dog or borrow somebody's dog and take it for walks. And I had a number of friends who don't have dogs who thought that was going to be a fantastic idea. And here at work, we've got a couple of chocolate Labradors, and so actually some of the ladies who work for us, we say, oh, we've got some posting, we need somebody taken to the post office, and they love the idea of just taking a dog for a walk. And so it's there are lots of these things that sort of feed in. Or I've got two small girls, 7 and 5. And there's a sort of local petting zoo. You can go and see the deer and see small animals, but there's nothing like that for adults. And when people come down to the farm where we've got some cows, quite often we give them, we'll say, here, look, here's a bucket of carrots, go and feed the cow or the cows. And people say, well, I've never been in a field with cows before. And we say, look, they're friendly. Why don't you just go in the field and, in fact, stand by the fence, and they'll come over and you can give them a scratch and feed them a carrot. And they're like, oh, really? Cows? I'm a bit scared of cows. No, it's okay. And they come over and they take, hasn't it got a rough tongue? And you're like, yeah, it does. The cow tongue's really rough. And so, like, you've seen these things when you're small children, but most adults never have, unless you're a farmer or you've spent your life in the country, you've never been and seen a cow close up or a pig close up. And it's fascinating.
A couple of things I'm noticing. First of all, just a little bit off topic, but I think a great thing to point out. I recently read Principles by Ray Dalio, and he said something to the effect of, even though he's one of the richest guys in the world, that what's more important to him than money is working, with people that he enjoys working with, meaningful work, and
Yeah.
kind of having that meaningful relationships and meaningful work. That's what he called it. And I'm really getting the sense from the way that you're presenting, how you interact with the people who work for you and the way you're trying to set up your life. You even said you bring people on business retreats at this kind of farm location. It sounds like you've got that under control. I really respect that. So the other thing I'll follow up with is I did a composting project back in New York City, and so I got to have firsthand look at the distance people have in an urban environment from exactly what you're talking about. Actually, in my apartment building, I went around asking people if they want to participate, giving their compost, and we would take it to be composted. And I talked to a woman who literally did not understand that food turns into soil. And I said, your food scraps. She said, oh, my food scraps. I always put them in a plastic bag and get them out of here as soon as possible. I was like, well, those are necessary for like the cycle of life, I said, that could turn into soil. And she's like, how do you turn it into soil? You put it in a blender? And I said, worms eat that food and then they poop it out and that's dirt. And she's like, oh my God, that's terrible. That's disgusting, And but it's fascinating, right? And we now are in an age where we have children growing up who, eat hamburgers and have no idea that actually comes from a cow, like all these things. It's and it's part of why our Chris and I care a lot about the future of the planet. It's part about why we're so disconnected from how badly the planet's going off track. We don't really understand the ecosystem and the cycle of life and all these things. So there's a lot of benefits to it. Okay, there's my little rant.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I do find it slightly maddening when I hear when somebody says to me, I'm just staying on that sort of future of the planet bit, and they say, oh, we should give up beef. We should give up beef because beef's ruining the planet. And in the UK, 75% of agriculture is under ruminants as opposed to under crops. And that's because it wouldn't support any crops. And so if we didn't have those cows eating the grass because cows are amazing, they turn grass, something we can't eat, into beef, something that we can eat. And they're incredibly good at it. And we couldn't grow anything on the land that they eat. And then if you farm regeneratively, then you overcome soil erosion and a whole load of other stuff. So there's not only in touch with the animals that from your composting project, but there's also a whole what should farming look like so that we can feed the planet in a way that doesn't cut down the Amazon rainforest and grow soybeans and feed cattle and feedlots, which is just awful for everybody.
It sounds like
there's another way to do it.
Dom, it sounds like you're passionate about this, and this could probably be a second idea that you bring into the show for a future conversation.
Oh yeah, totally.
One thing that I'll add to that is I've heard that the Netflix documentary Under the Ground or something like that, we'll have to look up the exact title if I'm wrong on that, and put that in the show notes. Woody Harrelson is narrating it. You see his mug whenever I'm scrolling on Netflix, but that's probably a good resource to check out if you're interested in this sort of regenerative farming and doing this sort of thing. Let's bring it back to the hotels aspect of it, because one thing that I'm thinking about as you're describing the farmland, that's all, again, I'm playing bad cop here a little bit. That's all the things that make it cool and fun. Feel good. Running a hotel and building a hotel operation that's a hard business in itself. And if you're layering in this farm aspect of it, you highlighted this yourself. That's that's a challenge. It can take years to both build something out, to acquire the capital, to do everything required to run a hotel in itself. I'm going to jump into it a little aside for an example. While you're thinking about that, Dom,
I've got an example too. I can give in a minute. Yeah, some numbers actually. Yeah,
there's so this is a different sort of hotel, but Cabana.life, they're doing a hotel on wheels. And I thought one of the interesting things about that is if you go to their homepage, there's this two friends sitting in the cabana vehicle that has the a full kitchen, and it's got a bed, and it's got a shower, all that stuff, and they're just overlooking the mountains. Um, but the interesting thing about that is the founder mentioned he thinks of it purely as a hotel business, and he mentioned to get a new room, quote unquote, aka a vehicle in their case converted into this hotel room, is about 80 grand compared to up to 500 grand per room for a traditional hotel. And his occupancy rates are super high. He still charges over $200 per night. So thinking about, there's an example of a twist on a hotel business. You're bringing something else in. You get to travel, and you're taking your cabana to Yosemite Park. We're U.S. focused here. Sorry, Dom.
Yeah,
But
no,
you're traveling out there, but he's still like, the numbers made a lot of sense. The actual like accoutrements of the idea made the core hotel business more effective and more capital efficient. So I'm curious if there's anything related to that any synergy related to that can be brought in,
well,
and maybe Ethan, did you want to jump in with a different example here, or?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in with a different example. Just to put some, because you just gave some numbers, I'll give some numbers. It just so happens that my little family of three, we went on a little getaway to a farm back in December. We brought my son when he turned 3 there for his birthday, and exactly the type of experience you're describing. They had a little toy. They even had a little toy tractor that they brought over that he could play with, and they had chickens that we could go feed, and they had a fireplace, and we got to use the fireplace, and we roasted marshmallows, and we chopped our own firewood, and that was actually an exciting part of it. It wasn't like work. My wife got excited about chopping firewood. So just to put some numbers on it, though, we spent $350 for 3 nights. Now we were on the lookout for an incredible deal, and we thought that was a really great deal. And we had like a whole farmhouse to ourselves. We happened to, because there weren't other people staying there. So we only stayed in 2 bedrooms, but I think they had a 3-bedroom and a first floor and all this stuff. But I mean, a night, I think it's reasonable that you could charge per room, $150, 100,
I
200
think this has got
bucks.
to be way more than that.
Yeah, do you think it's going to be
I
more per
think
night?
so. Yeah, I think so. I would think so, because of
Well,
all
Chris will
the.
pay more. Chris will pay more.
Yeah,
Pony
I'll
up,
pay
Chris.
more. If I get to feed the cows and feel that rough tongue.
It's $15 for the tongue experience. That's what you can charge for all those little things. Like, oh, you want to feel the cow's tongue?
No, come
It'll
on,
be
we're
like
not going like
it'll be
budget
like
airline style.
yeah, it'll be like the air. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you gotta to fold back your seat. They're gonna charge you, which you should never do, by the way. All right, Dom, we're going off the
Well,
rails.
it's funny because it's interesting because most of the hotel chains don't own their own hotels. What they do is they take a license to run a hotel from the owner of the physical hotel. The family and I were away in Greece last summer, and the guys who are running the hotel, Mark Warner, don't own the hotel. It's a Greek guy who owns the business. They've been in that hotel, then they fell out and they went somewhere else, and then they made up and they came back. And so if you have a concept that you can prove, you don't need the 500, whatever, you don't, potentially you don't need the millions of pounds to build a hotel. There might be a property you could take on, property you could rent, that would work. Or maybe you just scale down the whole thing, and if the farm that Ethan was on was 12 rooms or could hold 12 people, maybe that's it. And the thing is, if you had scarcity, maybe you get to charge a premium, right? So maybe it's like five-star farm, and it's only got 12 rooms. If it works, you'd probably be able to go and raise money and do it again and do it again.
Yeah, it
I
seems like
think that,
another thing you could do is, if there's people with existing farms and farmland, you could go and sell it to them as an extra way to make income, especially given some of these farms maybe aren't doing great. And say, hey, let's take a portion of your property. I got some ready-made modular little cabins. We'll put a bunch of
yeah,
them on the farm, and you'll let people hang out and see what's going on. Give them tours, and we'll help set up that part of it. And those modular homes are, it's kind of like that converting a van idea. It might be
Yeah.
more like $100,000 instead of 500.
Well, in the UK, they've got that sort of cabin concept. There's a called, I've forgotten what they're called. But there's a company called Featherdown Farms, and they put yurts on the farm. So it's that sort of temporary thing. You don't need planning permission, and they've got a there's no electricity, but there's a log fire, and so you don't need to have run water and utilities out to it, and that is a quite expensive way to go and stay in a tent. So I know there's a demand, but I was thinking about Chris's comment, which was, what's the biggest challenge? And I think that it's probably the people, right? Because it's a hospitality business, and so it could look great in the brochure, but you turn up and it's the interaction that you have with the people that you meet whilst you're there that is, if you think about a hotel or a restaurant, you go out for dinner. It's not necessarily the fact that the wallpaper is amazing or the quality of the table and the chairs and the cutlery. They don't necessarily make a great night. You can go out with a group of mates, and the server in your restaurant can make or break the night. And I remember doing some work, or looking at something like the Gallup Strength Profile, which is a way in which Marriott, I think, had used to identify the staff that they wanted to take back of house and put front of house. But I lived and worked in San Antonio in Texas for a little while. But before I was living there, I went to La Mencion, which is a hotel down on the Riverwalk. And I remember, ringing down in the morning and saying, look, I've looked at the menu, but I could really just do with some plain yogurt, some natural yogurt and some fruit. Could I have that, please? And so this lady, Maria, said, yes, not a problem at all. And she sent up enough food, well, like a gallon of yogurt and enough fruit for about a family of 5 for a week. And so I ate what I needed, and I just, left the rest. And the next day I rang down and said, is that Maria? Could I have the same again? And she said, oh, Mr. Monkhouse, I'm so pleased you called, because yesterday your food came back down and it looked like you hadn't touched it. And I was really worried that I hadn't understood what you wanted. And it's like, most of the time, I would say 99% of the time, I've never been in a large hotel where I've spoken to the same person twice. And so rarely do you ever speak to anyone who cares what you think, or cares enough to have the conversation with you. And so it's, I think it's people like Maria that you want to go and hire. You want people who love delivering great service. And then if you can drop them in an environment where some of them are cooking and maybe you're running cookery courses, or some of them, have got a shotgun license and can take you out clay pigeon shooting, or somebody knows the forest well and can take you out foraging. I think you can have people who can do both. And my experience of people like that is they love to share their knowledge with other people. And certainly when clients come here, occasionally people say, I don't like dogs, but mostly they'd rather have the dogs in with us whilst we're doing work because somebody wants to, stroke the dog. Or people are always fascinated when the geese walk past the door, or when you can hear the cockerels crowing, or the cows walking past. And I love sharing what I know about the animals that we have here. And so I just think it's that you've got to decide. You're probably how much you charge per night is probably driven by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. There's a thing about the quality of the accommodation and the food, but I think you'll get a premium for the experience, and I think the experience will drive your occupancy rate up.
I was really hoping that you were going to get into how you were going to find this star cow that's like really genial. Everyone loves the cow. It's got the roughest tongue that you've ever felt.
I tell you what, one of ours is called Moody Cow. That's not her pedigree name, but she's just miserable. She's for the 6 years we've owned her, she's just been bloody miserable.
Yeah, people should come for miles to come see the cow, right? That should be a big draw. So coming back to the idea of the business itself, the hotel business, I've gotten an example that I've personally been a customer of. It's in slightly different industry. It's the restaurant business. In New Orleans, there is this now chain called Ruby Slipper that was started. It was an ex Shell employee, I believe, who started it. And her and her husband, they Googled how to start a restaurant and they just followed the steps, right? They just did exactly what everyone knows to do for this industry that's been around for super long. And that always struck me as, yeah, if you just actually do the things that everyone knows to do, that you can probably be pretty successful. I think that would probably be true in the hotel industry.
Well, I like you look at shows like Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, and he walks into a restaurant, and you think these people who run restaurants never watch these shows, right? Because he turns up, these shows have been on for decades, and he turns up and he goes, yeah, you've got 350 items on your menu. How can you possibly cook them all well? Why are you doing this Thai Icelandic fusion thing that nobody understands, right? And it's like there's just a simplicity, finding something and doing it well. What's your niche?
Yeah, absolutely. So when are you going to start this farm, Dom? I want to come visit.
Well, you could come visit. You could come visit the farm. We just don't have any rooms. You can't come and stay. And it's funny. We started the whole thing because we realized that we wanted to, as a family, we wanted to eat better. And so we said, okay, we're not going to eat processed food. So we're not going to buy anything in a packet. We're going to cook all our own food. We're going to buy vegetables and meat and just cook. And then we realized the only thing that we still bought that was processed food was bacon and sausages. And so we said, okay, well, in that case, we're going to have our own pigs. So we started looking around to rent some land to keep some pigs on, and then the farm came up for sale, so we bought it. So, and then you could cut the grass, or you could buy some cows to cut the grass. So we bought some cows.
You've just been slowly edging into becoming a farmer, then.
That's right. Yeah. And then we bought some more land so we can have some more cows.
Chris, by the way, aside from this business idea at all, should we go in together on a farm? Should we become farmers? Take advantage of this USDA land grant and just
just buy a farm and start.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, this episode is not going to be released because we are taking the idea. I need to issue a correction.
I don't need to run
quick.
A business on it. I just want to have a little farm for my
want the farm
kid to play around on.
That documentary is called Kiss the Ground, not Under the Ground. Kiss the Ground, better title.
Well, if you have a farm, Ethan, you get to buy a tractor.
Perfect.
And notwithstanding your son's desire or joy on a small ride-on tractor, honestly, every man should have a tractor and a small digger. And you just got to have a bit of a big enough backyard.
This reminds me, actually, so right down the block from us, they knocked down a little old dentist office, and they're building a different building, and they knocked it down over the winter time. And of course, my son loves construction, so we would go over there and just watch the whole process. And they had this big construction machine with the I can't think of the dig, he calls it
grab.
The digger. Yeah, a grab, whatever. And so they did a couple of amazing things for him because it was such a small construction site. The security, the safety precautions were not as high. So number one, they let him come into the site and sit inside the actual truck, and where they have the knobs and things to pull things. And then because they saw us watching, the guy that was running the digger did one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I wouldn't even have thought of. He took the actual digging part of it and he pointed it towards my son, and he made the digger go like this, so it looked like it was waving at him, like up and down, and that was it. That was like the best day of his life. So for anybody out there who runs a construction equipment, make it wave at a kid, and you'll change their life. I was looking up just to, you could search for hours trying to figure out this stuff. And I have just previously, out of curiosity, like finding these modular, little homes that you can buy. I found a place called Avrame USA. I think it's Avrame, not Avram. But you could buy like an A-frame type of little cabin for a few hundred square feet. And it looks like it's under 50K. Of course, you're going to have to hook up maybe electricity and figure out some details around that. But there's going to be hopefully there's going to be little cabins and things like that you could potentially put in as part of this project inexpensively.
My wife keeps saying we should do something like that here, and I keep saying that not at the moment. Do one business at a time.
Smart. That's why you're here, just to talk about it.
Yeah.
Just to talk. We're just talking. Don't worry.
Just to fantasize about this business idea.
So that's a good launching off point to start talking about what you are currently working on, Dom. Can you tell the listener about the F Plan B and some of your other projects?
So look, I've spent most of my working life working for North American tech firms. So Rackspace, who are headquartered in San Antonio, Texas, and what was then Pier 1 Hosting, who were headquartered in Vancouver in Canada. And what I did for both of those is built out European operations, and got to sort of 30 million both times in about 5 years. And then my daughter was born 7 years ago in May. And I just left Pier 1 just before she was born. And what I do now is I coach CEOs of tech firms. We've got clients in US, UK, France, Spain, Australia, and coach the leadership team of those firms to get really clear on their business model. Because everyone has a business plan. So everyone has an Excel spreadsheet that says, I don't know, we're 10 million or 30 million, and we want to be 60 million or 90 million, 200 million. They don't necessarily know quite how they're going to get there. And year over year, they're often disappointed with what progress they haven't made towards their Excel madness spreadsheet idea. And so I work with them to get really clear on what their business, who their core customer is, and what their niche is. And we sort of, this conversation we're having about the hotel is very reminiscent of sort of coaching conversations I have with clients. Who is your customer? What will they value? Why will they pay that? Why would they darken your door? And F Plan B was a book I wrote last year, which was what had I learned from, what are sort of the principles behind the success that I've had. And really the sort of having plan A, I don't know, sort of burning your boats, having no retreat, forces people to be really, really clear on they've only got one option, which is to go forward. And they can't go backwards. So it's not, you can't be half in, you've got to be all in, no plan B. And so you better get plan A, better be right, and then commit to it.
So how could we force ourselves to commit to this project, us as a hypothetical? How, what would it be? Would it be, buying the farm in the first place, or would it be, how would you make sure getting some investors? Is this like an investor type of business? 'Cause that's definitely a big step. If you raise funding for a project, then it's kind of got to go forward because people are relying on you.
Yeah, well, the team that provide our outside catering for the events that we run also have a couple of pubs and a hotel. But the lady that runs it has got private investors to fund the hotel. So the hotel is owned by a group of investors, and then she runs it. And the return that they get for owning the hotel is better than if they put that money somewhere else. I guess they get to go and stay at the hotel as well. I hadn't asked her whether, but I bet they do. And it was interesting because they needed some money last year as a result of COVID, because they couldn't serve food indoors. And so one of the things that they did is they stuck up a massive tent, and they started doing picnics by the river. So actually for the months last year that they could trade, turnover was up, because they were able to go back to their investors and say, look, can we have some more money? We've got this other idea, and push on. And I think if you these types of things are about reputation, right? So nobody would, whereabouts in New York City, you say?
I used to live in New York City. I'm in the Chicago area now. Chris is in Pennsylvania.
So I don't know. Nobody goes to the third best Indian restaurant in Pennsylvania, like unless the first two are already full, right? And so I think this would be about building a reputation. And if you could do something on a small scale, then you build a reputation. You've got a sort of proof of concept. And then I think you could go and do it bigger. So if you took the sort of 12-bedroom farmhouse that you were talking about, Ethan, you could prove that occupancy rates were high relative to the cost of the rooms, your return on investment was better. And then you could then sort of, then you've got a business model. You can say, right, now we're going to do the cabins, and we're going to go out and find farmers, and the whole thing looks like this. And then you go out and you could get the whole thing invested.
Yeah, one thing you could do, because actually the farm that we stayed at here in December, I could tell these people bought a farm, maybe kind of a romantic idea, but they had their existing jobs they had to continue with, and I could tell that it was kind of, even though it's just Airbnb, it's a little stressful to kind of manage everything and keep track of everything. And so you could potentially, because this is actually a thing I've seen on Airbnb, you could look at a site like Airbnb or VRBO and find those folks that are already doing a rental for their farm, and make it a project to kind of go in and assist them in making it not just a place to stay, but an experience, where there's actually part of the whole thing is, going to feed the chickens. And maybe you can also, if you can succeed at also increasing the price for them, increasing the revenue for them by increasing the value and doing that, then I think that could be an interesting way, a low impact way, but one where you kind of burn the bridge by making the commitment and partnering with those people to get started.
I think you're right. It's a bit like Chris was saying with the sort of the checklist for running a restaurant. We did, when we used to live down in the village, we had sort of two cottages that were knocked together, but you could separate them. And so we did rent it out occasionally. And the first person who came to stay was a guy who his job was to advise people on how to get the most from their Airbnb rental. And it was about, the quality of the pictures and the quality of the towels and, the champagne in the fridge for when people arrived. And so, all of that sort of experiential, so that you then get the 5-star rating. And I know I was down in Sydney working with a client a couple of years ago. And there's a guy there I had lunch with who used to work for me at Rackspace in the UK. And he was running a business in Sydney where they basically manage Airbnb rentals for people. And it was that whole thing. They've got a playbook that says, it's a bit stressful to do it yourself. You've got a room, or you've got a house. Maybe you're not even in town anymore. We go in and we put all the furniture in, and we then manage the whole experience all the way through, from taking the booking through to cleaning it. And so I think there's a whole playbook you could have. People sign up and, you do all the sales and marketing, and they manage against the playbook.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's a site that I looked into for my rental property several years ago. And when I was thinking about maybe doing an Airbnb out of it, it's called AirDNA.
Okay.
And yeah, it's pretty cool. And you're right, this is a very rapidly growing industry, because oftentimes you can make way more money doing an Airbnb on a property than you could on a traditional rental. And there's all sorts of perks from that as well. But I don't know if they're still doing it, because this was a few years ago, but they had these kind of calculators on this AirDNA site where you can say, here's the address of the property, here's how many beds that I think I can put in it, and they'll return for you based on market comparisons how much they think that you can return on your Airbnb income, how much you might make. They'll even give you details on what seasons you'll make more and what seasons you'll make less, and things like that. So interesting resource if you're going to think along these lines and explore these possibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to wrap up here. We're not reinventing the wheel with it. It's not, you're not trying to land a rocket on Mars or anything like that. You're doing something that's been done for a long time, and you're adding this, this cool element that's capturing the trend of people wanting to be more in tune with nature and eat fresher food, all that. So thank you, Dom, for sharing some of the insights here and how you would approach this, and sharing F Plan B and some of your consulting work. That's all good stuff. If people want to find you, what's the best way that they can do so?
Luckily, I've got quite an unusual name. So if you Google Dominic Monkhouse, then I will be at the top of that Google search.
Great.
And you can ping me an email or hit me up on LinkedIn.
Perfect. But then the other question we need to ask the end is, when can we come and stay with you on your farm?
Anytime. Well, you can't stay, but you could come and visit. Like if you're in the UK, if you're in the UK, I mean, look, it's, the UK is tiny. It's like really a village. Nobody's ever more than 70 miles from the sea. We're about 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours south of Heathrow. So
easy.
Let me know. Come on down.
I'll stay with you though. Don't worry.
He'll force his way.
There's a couch or something, whatever.
He's picked out one of the chairs
on the hay.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Sleep in the hayloft. Not a problem.
Dom, great to meet you. Great chatting with you. It's been a lot of fun. Looking forward to connecting again in the future.
Chris, Ethan, it's been lovely. Thank you for having me on.
Yep.
Take care. All right.
And
I'll
cut the live stream.
Yeah, sign off to the live stream. And we're right on time here.